Hey guys, all right, sorry about the bad video. We're gonna do this again. So, Unit 2, Lesson 1. This is domain and range, and we're looking at it in different notations. So you can see here we have, sorry, should have waited for that. All right, so here the definition of domain is gonna be our input or our X values. These are important things to remember with domain. Range is our output or our Y values. Then we have the different types of notation here. You have the definitions, you have examples here. I want to go ahead and jump down and let's work the domain and range. So for domain, I want to review this kind of in depth because I realized yesterday in class that a lot of you didn't remember domain and range from Algebra 1. So let me pick a different color here. So domain is our X values, and we're going to find that by going from left to right on our graph. Okay, range is the Y values, and we find that by going bottom to top. Okay, so that's kind of quick ways to remember when you're finding domain range. So on this line, the first thing we see is we have arrows on both ends. That means this line's going to keep going up forever. It's going to keep going down forever. It's going to keep going to the right forever. Well, that's definitely not my right. It's going to keep going to the left forever. It's going to keep going to the right forever. Okay. So my domain here, I'm just going to use D, so I don't have to write domain every time. My domain here, from the left-hand side of the graph, it's going to keep going forever and ever and ever. So we can write this in interval notation as negative infinity, and it's going to keep going to the right forever and ever and ever, which means it's going to go to positive infinity. One way in Algebra 1 you probably saw this was verbally, so this is interval notation. Let me write that in a... This is, I don't know why I keep choosing yellow. Interval notation. This one may be a little bit new to you. We can write this verbally by saying all real numbers. So this is our verbal description. Oops, that's not the same color. Let's go back. This is our verbal description. Okay. Another type of notation we have is inequality notation. When we're talking about negatives, we wouldn't really use this notation. It's not really proper, so I'm not going to show you that right now. Then we have set notation. I want you to see set notation, but I'm not going to test you over it. You're not really going to use this again until you get into, unless you take higher level math courses. So if you're getting a math degree, engineering degree, maybe computer programming type degree. Other than that, you're probably not going to see set notation very often from here on out. But we would write this as open bracket. We would do the little butterfly bracket. We would say the set, the brackets mean set. So the set of X such that X is an element of the real numbers. And we use this fancy little R. And then we're going to close that out. So these all three mean the same thing, and this is set notation. Okay, so these all three mean the same thing. This is our domain. So here, our range, our graph, we're going to go bottom to top. So on the bottom, we have an arrow down here, which means this is going to keep going forever and ever and ever down. So again, we're going to say this is negative infinity. We have an arrow at the top, which means it's going to keep going up forever and ever and ever. So we go to positive infinity. We can say this is all real numbers. I'm just going to say ARN. And then our set notation, we would have the little bracket. We would say Y, the set of Y, such that Y is an element of the reals. Range is Y values. That's why we change it to a Y. All right, so number 2 for domain. Let me change to a different color. I'm kind of tired of seeing orange. All right, so for domain here, we're going to go left to right. So on the left-hand side of my graph, I see an arrow which means it's just going to keep going up and to the left. So that means it's going to go to negative infinity. On the right-hand side of my graph, the furthest right is an arrow again, positive infinity. We can say all real numbers. We can say set notation x, the set of x, such that x is an element of the reals. Our range, we're going from the bottom of our graph, which is here. So the lowest point on my graph is 0. And now we need to notice that in interval notation we use parentheses or brackets. And we use brackets when we say when it's equal to. So here, because this line is a solid line, because the line on our graph is solid, then we're going to include the 0 into our solution set. So we would have a bracket here. Then we're going to go, the top of my graph has arrows, so it's going to keep going up. It would go to positive infinity, and we're going to put, we always put parentheses around infinity because this is never ending. So verbally we can say any number greater than or equal to 0. We can say all positive numbers and 0 greater than or equal to 0. So we could say this in a couple different ways. Our set notation, we would write this as y, the set of y, such that y is an element of the real numbers. And then we're going to include our inequality notation in this set. So we're going to say where y is greater than or equal to 0. So now we can use this inequality notation on this problem because our range also means that y is all the numbers greater than or equal to 0. So the biggest thing I want you guys to know how to use is interval notation and inequality notation. Okay, like I said, set verbally, you're just writing what you would say when you're writing these two notations. Set notation, you're not going to see often until you get into higher level math. So inequality notation and interval notation, these are the two we're going to use most often. In my class, these are the two you're going to use most often as you move into pre-cal and calculus with Mr. Grand George. All right, so let's look at number 3. We're going to go left to right. When I have endpoints here, I like to go ahead and get my points. So this is -5, -1, and here we have the point 0, 4. So for my domain, I'm going to go ahead and write in inequality notation because I think that's what you guys saw most in Algebra 1. So domain, we're going left to right. So on the left-hand side of my graph, the furthest x value I have is -5. I'm going to say that it's less than or equal to because I have a closed circle here. We're talking about x values, and I'm going to say that's less than, again, we have a closed circle up here, or equal to 0. So this is my inequality notation. For interval notation, because I use an equal to sign here, I'm going to have a bracket, and that's -5, comma, I'm going all the way on the right hand side to 0. That's also equal to or a closed circle, so I'm going to use another bracket. One way I remember to use the bracket is that it has to be equal to, and if you look at the top and the bottom of the bracket, it kind of looks like an equal sign. That's just my little memory trick that I use. Okay, so range, on range, we're going bottom to top. Sorry, I just kind of lost my train of thought here. So range, we're going bottom to top. So the bottom here, my y value is -1. We're going to say less than or equal to because it's a closed circle. Y is less than or equal to the top of my graph. My y value there is 4. So in interval notation, again, I'm going to have brackets, -1, +4, close bracket. Okay, so these are the two main notations I want you to know. We would say this domain as any value between -5 and 0, or the range would be maybe any value between -1 and 4. Okay, so I want to look at number 5 with you, and then I want you to do number 4 and 6. Actually, number 6 you probably did on the warm-up. So I will make sure I check y'all's. But I want you to do number 4, take a picture, email it to me. So number 5, we go domain is going to be left to right. So again, I'm going to label my points here. On this left-hand side, I have the point -4, -4. Over here, I have the point 4, -4. So domain is left to right. On the left-hand side, I have -4. It's less than or equal to, because it's a closed circle. X is less than, this is an open circle here, so I'm going to just leave it as less than. +4 is my x value on this end. So in interval notation, the first point on the left-hand side is equal to, so I'm going to have a bracket, -4. The rightmost point, my x value is +4, it's open, I'm going to have a parentheses. For range, my lowest point are both of these, right? But it's -4. Because I have an equal to on this side, I'm going to do less than or equal to, because I am including that point on at least one part of my graph. We're talking about y's, and then I'm looking at the top of my graph. So for range, let me go ahead and just change this color. For range, we're going from the bottom, which was -4, we had a close point here, to the top. We're not going from endpoint to endpoint anymore. We're going from the bottom to the top, the lowest point to the highest point. And here, we're going to be less than, because it's a solid line, we're going to say equal to, and this is going to be +2. So when I write this in interval notation, the first side over here has an equal to symbol, so it's going to be brackets, -4, comma, 2. Again, we have equal to sign here, so we're going to have another bracket. All right, so I want you to do number 4. Number 6 was your warm-up for today, so I will double check and make sure you guys got that correct, or I'll give you notes and feedback there. But at least do number 4 and email it to me so I can check your work. Also, I posted an assignment today, so I want you to work through that. You can just write it on a piece of paper, upload your pictures. I will be checking that and giving you a grade for that. Don't do number 9 on the graph page. So on the second page on the assignment, don't do number 9. It didn't give you the full range for that. If you have any questions, let me know.